In this episode of the Church Security Roll Call, we're going to be discussing tactical training. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Chris with Sheepdog Church Security, and this is your Church Security Roll Call. Today we're going to be discussing the article, A Drilled Response. If you'd like to read that article, go to our website, sheepdogchurchsecurity.net, and look under the News tab. So let's start in the Bible. This one is Judges 20, verse 16, and it reads like this. Among all this people there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Every one could sling stones at a hair's breadth and not miss. Great verse for us. Basically, good advice. We all need to get to the range so we could sling those stones, if you will, at a hair's breadth or in a hair breadth. Anyway, get to the range. All right, so this is something that we need to talk about, and it's basically the importance of drills and the importance of training, going to the range, getting all that stuff, practicing to the point of muscle memory. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Before I continue, I want to remind you to share this video with friends, with staff, with people on your team, and then get the show notes so you can discuss where, kind of have that discussion about where is your team, where's your church today, and where do you want to be in the future, and how you might want to put together some drills and some range days and all that good stuff. So let's begin in the Bible. This one is Livingston Parish, Louisiana. The sheriff's office in Livingston Parish offers tactical training classes to church safety and security teams in the parish. The instructors all post, that's police officer standards and training certified. The course includes scenario-based simulation training, and classes are at the parish training center. So there's a lot of departments that are starting to do this, different counties, different police departments. They really are understanding the risks that houses of worship are under, and they're willing to help out. And it's just a matter of asking and seeing if enough people ask, they might offer something like that. Next one is Hazlet, Texas. Probably saying that wrong. Sorry for you in Texas. This is the summer 2019. A church campus in Hazlet is the site of a tactical training for church safety teams. Various active shooter scenarios are acted out using guns with blanks. Also practiced are unarmed self-defense and control and arrest techniques. Once again, another county, another place that's offering this kind of training. If you live close to these, you might want to look into it if you already don't know about it. If not, get into it. All right, next. Westchester, Ohio, November 2017. Mass shooting in places of worship has led to more churches using armed safety volunteers. Several team members from churches in the Westchester area are enrolled in monthly tactical training, including containment and engagement. Great stuff. Krugerville, Texas, January 2020. A building in the business district of Krugerville hosts classes in church security in addition to instruction. This includes role-playing and scenario enactments. Great stuff. Also covered are use of force laws. Skill sets include unarmed defense and control, verbal de-escalation, active shooter situations. A number of the churches have teams trained with has increased in November 2017 Sutherland Springs massacre. So, a lot of people are waking up to this, which is really good, and looking for this looking for this training. Also, Colorado Springs, Colorado, June 9, 2020. Live drills with fake guns are used by the Mountain Springs Church in training its safety team. This training also includes discussions on what level of force is needed, so this is your shoot and don't shoot. All very good examples of just the increasing amount of resources that are out there to help safety teams develop their skills. These kind of, when you're talking about tactical situations, when you're talking about an active shooter scenario, you either need to be very lucky or very good. And I would rather be very good. So make your own luck by getting out there doing this kind of training. Now you have to measure this against all the other training that you need to get done as well. And so we got to find balance. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is really there's two powers, or two things kind of competing against each other. Number one, you want to be highly trained and highly prepared for these types of events. Extremely important. But on the other end of that, what's pulling against that is really the time of our volunteers. How much training should they expect? How much training should they experience? They need to know up front what's going to be expected of them. And also, too, you have to kind of watch burnout. You can really train too much. It is possible to train too much. Not in the sense that you're getting better and better, on that end. There is no such thing as too much training. Train all you want. Train as frequently as you want. But realize that not everybody might have the same motivation level that you have. And so you have to then consider, okay, what's going to be our minimum standard, and how can we encourage people to train even more and more and more. So I hope that kind of makes sense for you. I think some of you that have led teams for a while, you understand that you have probably a 20% of your team, maybe 50% of your team, somewhere in there. You have some very highly motivated people. They want to go to the range. They want to do these tactical shoots. They want to learn how to clear rooms and all this, SWAT stuff. And that's great, and you're running with them and taking them as far as they're wanting to go and willing to go with you. Then you have usually a greater group of people that have more limited time. And so with them, that's where we get into what is the minimum standard. You shouldn't require super high standard or you may lose over half your team. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe your team is so large you can lose half and not have a problem. But I'm thinking that most churches that I talk to, it's so hard to get good people on the safety team. And so we have to be careful. But anyway, that's not even the point that I really wanted to make today. Really, the point I want to make today is just how important drills are and how important scenario-based training is. It's extremely important. And we need to be doing this with our team. Unlike soldiers or even police officers, when you become a police officer after you get through the academy or however you get hired and you get trained on, then you're doing those kind of things for 40 hours a week, right? You're answering calls, you're interacting with people, you're developing your verbal de-escalation skills, hopefully. You occasionally have to put your hands on somebody and you're dealing with them and you got to get handcuffs on them. You're involved in these kind of scenarios, these kind of situations that keeps that training going and that keeps it up. And really that's why, to some extent, police officers can just kind of review these things every once in a while in order to keep them on the right path, because you can actually start to deviate off the right path and start doing things improperly. And that's why you have that regular training. Unfortunately for church safety teams, for the most part, depending on where you're located, but for the most of us, we go to church, week after week after week after week, and nothing occurs. It's just patrolling the grounds, paying attention, maybe a medical here and there, maybe somebody misbehaving or out in the parking lot that shouldn't be there. But for the most part, it's pretty slow. And so we don't get that continued practice that is so important. And that's why you as the leader, or you as the team member influencing the leader, you want to start setting up some basic scenario-based training to keep you sharp. That's part of this whole program here. Well, this is obviously not drills and it's not scenario-based training, but it's about continuing the conversation, because just mentally preparing and talking about these things goes a long way to keep you and your team sharp. But getting back into these situations, these trainings that we want to create, what we want to do is we want to make these trainings as realistic as possible. One of the problems with the training with those police departments or those sheriff's offices is that you're going to a facility that's not yours. And so what happens is you might learn the general things that you need to learn about, going around a corner or going through a door, that kind of stuff. But it's not your building. The best place to train is on your grounds, in your building. One of the things I recommend to people in our active shooter response course is just how important it is to basically get a starter pistol and or some dummy pistol that the bad guy can have. All right, if it's like a starter pistol and it makes noise, even better. Next thing you need is you need 2 airsoft guns. I like airsoft guns over any other type of training weapon because it's easy to clean up. Airsoft, you shoot a little BB, white BB, plastic BB, and even though you do your best to clean them all up, there will be one laying out there somewhere, but at least it's not paint on the wall. It's nothing that has to be cleaned up. It can be swept up, it can be picked up. It's easy to fix that mess. And then, of course, any protective gear that's required for the bad guy. So this is what I do. The bad guy is wearing thick clothing because those little BBs can hurt. They're thicker clothing for protection. They're wearing some sort of face shield for protection. And then they have the starter pistol that makes noise but nothing else. Then I train 2 guys at a time, 2 team members at a time responding with those airsoft pistols. Then when they find, they hear the gunshot, they go move tactically into that area, they engage the bad guy, they shoot until the bad guy goes down, and then, of course, they never go down. That's why the bad guy only has a starter pistol. He's not shooting white pellets at them because we don't want to train people to die. But anyway, my point is, that's all the equipment you need. And then you and your team can go to the church and run different scenarios. Now, I could give you some ideas here, but really the main point is this. Put the bad guy in different places throughout the church. Have the team then respond from wherever they would normally be during their patrol to that location to neutralize the bad guy. It's as simple as that. And as you're running that kind of drill with your people and you're watching, they're evaluating how they're moving towards the bad guy and are they doing what they need to do to keep themselves safe while stopping the bad guy, that's what all you need to evaluate. During that, other things will kind of come up as ideas for you to try something different. And now the idea here is not to confuse or trick your safety team members. Instead, what you're trying to do is throw them a curveball or two. After they've established the basics, you can start throwing little curveballs to them as long as those curveballs were things that were discussed. So I would not, for an example, create a hostage situation where the bad guy is holding somebody at gunpoint, and if you hadn't covered that kind of scenario and what to do. You see what I'm saying? So we're throwing them curveballs, but we're not trying to trick them. We're trying to train them for different things and then test what they've been trained. And so, but the idea still is to get some variety in there. Have some shoot, don't shoot scenarios. A bad guy could theoretically throw his pistol down, right? And so you can have that as a situation because it's so important that we teach our guys that not all scenarios end with you killing the bad guy. Some of them are going to end differently. The bad guy might commit suicide. The bad guy might run out of the building. The bad guy might give up, toss down their weapon and give up. There's different things that the bad guy could blow up. There's different things that can occur. And so we want to make sure that we're training them to deal with what they see when they get there. Anyway, I've been mostly talking about active shooter, and there's so much more. Fire drills. Domestic disturbances where it's just verbal de-escalation, storm drills, tornado warnings or whatever is hurricane or whatever you got going on in your part of the country. What do you need to practice with staff and volunteers? Medical emergencies, lost child, abducted child, those kind of things. We need to be practicing these kind of stuff. And this is where things really start to happen, I guess, is what I'd like to say. We offer our training at 16 hours. It's an open enrollment. I'll talk about that in a minute. And that's a good solid foundation to get everybody on the same sheet of music, because it's all about those procedures. We're training people in intellectually what they need to know on how to respond to these things, and that's the first step. Then after that, you want to start practicing what you're doing in the scenario training, in these drills, and that's where you really start figuring things out. I'll just give you a good example. Let's say you put together an evacuation plan. Awesome. You can use an evacuation plan for all kinds of things, right? You can use it for fire. You could use it for a gas leak. You could use it for active shooter. An evacuation is an evacuation with the exception of an assembly area for fire and no assembly area for active shooter. But the point is you're practicing getting people out of the building as fast as possible. Well, you could get your floor plan and draw those little arrows and make your best guess on what those best routes are going to be. But it's when you run the drill itself that you start to realize, whoa, we got too many people trying to cram through this door. Or we're having some serious problems with people going down this hall because we like to store tables and chairs in there. So are we going to divert them, or are we going to start cleaning up the mess in the hallway that's been a storage area for 20 years? These decisions have to be made, and you start to fine tune what you're doing. The same thing happens with active shooter. As you're practicing these drills, you're discovering things like, wow, it's hard to get across this large room with no cover and concealment to engage a bad guy. How are we going to solve this problem? Or you start to identify where are the best places. As you're moving through the church, different areas, you're going to identify places of cover. You're going to find places of concealment that work well. And so anyway, you kind of get my point. It's once you start doing the drills and scenarios that things really start coming together. Not only that, you continue to build that teamwork and understanding of each other. A good example might be maybe somebody moves really slow. No problem with that. It could be mobility issues for whatever reasons. But you don't know that until you start training and you realize, hey, I can't. If I'm working with this guy, everyone on the team learns, hey, if we're working with this guy, I either need to start moving slower, or somebody else is going to have to help me engage this, take care of this situation, or whatever it is. These are the important little details that you learn in scenario-based training. So I've rambled on a little bit. I want to take a minute and tell you guys that you got to read this article. You really have to go over, read the article, get over there. Wesley did extremely good job on giving you a lot to think about putting these drills together. The other thing that he brings up is I had an interview with Carl Chin. And you can look on our YouTube page and look for a special interview with Carl Chin. And he talks about the sights and smells of an active shooter situation in the movie theater, the Batman Returns movie. I think it was Batman Returns. But anyway, it's in there. And he talked to somebody who put together a presentation and just talked about the absolute chaos and what it was like to work there. And that's part of it too, is mentally preparing to see, smell, hear all the sights and all that kind of stuff going on. But definitely check out that video. Definitely check out Wesley's article. And then finally, what I want to let you know is this. It's open enrollment right now. And what that means is this. We start our first online training event on September 11th. And for the next 2 weeks, until September 4th, 2022, it's going to be at a special discount. So our individual, if you're just on your own, you're taking it, our individual goes from $85 to $50. And you get invited to all these online training events that I'm hosting. Plus you have your own account. So if you want to train on your own or you miss a class, you can simply jump on your student account, take and then watch the exact same videos. You just don't get to see me. And then when you're done with that, you take the test. If you pass the test, you're certified with us for 2 years. The other thing of the team safety member certification, so this is for people with larger teams and you're looking for a training solution that includes other staff and volunteers. It's normally $595, so basically $600. It's 50% off, so it's $297.50. And this allows you those Zoom meetings with me, which we already talked about. It gives you 7 student accounts with an ability to add more. It allows you for church hosted training. And probably the most important part is this, is it includes training for staff and other volunteers. So imagine your children's ministry. They probably want to take part in the child protection course and the fire. And then maybe your ushers, door greeters, and people like that. They need to take some of these courses, maybe verbal de-escalation, I don't know. But that's something that you have as an option. You can train everybody, and that's really when things start happening. When everyone's trained, when the pastor knows what's going on, and the elders and the other employees there, and other volunteers and door greeters, and all those people understand what to do in different situations, that's when you really start to get a very, very safe church, because everyone's prepared for all these different kinds of events. So this is the time to jump on, mostly, because it's on discount, but also too, September 11th, I start these classes, and we do one every single week until all 8 courses are done, and then we start with quarter 2, we start all over again. And so you got 4 opportunities. If you get that team one, you got 4 opportunities to get people trained. And so hopefully we get everybody in that time frame. So anyway, definitely check out. I also want to say one other thing while I still have you is we came out with our new mass trauma module. It's really great. We actually got an extremely glowing review from a doctor. He's a physician/surgeon, is the way he described himself. And he said it was an awesome course. And it covered things that he hadn't seen before in those kind of stop the bleeds, or those other kind of things. It was he just loved how we combined so many different elements together to make sure that people like you were completely prepared for a mass trauma event at your house of worship. So it was nice from a surgeon. That's good. That made me feel good. My researchers do good work apparently. So anyway, thank you so much for being here today, and please like, share, comment. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And jump over onto the website and register. This, like I said, we're super cheap right now, like way cheap, and we start soon. So thank you so much. Let's be careful out there. This program is made for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice.